Avengers Endgame is just around the corner, and fans are eagerly awaiting for the conclusion of 11 years of storytelling within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But as we look forward towards Endgame, we also have to look back on Infinity War. A lot of craziness happened in that film, but nothing is more surprising than when Doctor Strange willingly gave up the Time Stone. This allowed Thanos to complete his quest and decimate the universe. Why would Strange do such a thing?
Why would you do that?
Let's break it down and see what the Sorcerer Supreme was really thinking. During the events of Infinity War, the Mad Titan Thanos went on a crusade to collect the 6 Infinity Stones in order to wipe out half of the universe. The stones were scattered through the galaxy, and Thanos had to do some questing in order to obtain all of them. One of them was protected by Doctor Strange. The Eye of Agamotto, otherwise known as the Time Stone, was put in his charge, and he wasn't just going to give it up. When Ebony Maw tries to reclaim the stone from Strange on Earth, he finds powerful magic protecting it, which forces Maw to abduct the sorcerer to outer space. Tony Stark and Peter Parker follow them and eventually save Strange from the worst to come. But Strange isn't particularly welcoming to his newfound allies, telling them that if they get in the way or compromise the safety of the stone, he'll have no problem putting the stone above them.
I will not hesitate to let either of you die.
Cold but fair coming from the Guardian of the Time Stone. Then, the unthinkable happens. On Titan, Strange peeks into the future and sees 14,605 possible outcomes in the upcoming conflict with Thanos. Out of all of those upcoming futures, only one outcome saw the Avengers emerge victoriously. Things looked to be going pretty well for our heroes until Star-Lord dropped the ball when he learned of Gamora's death. From there, Thanos was able to bounce back and defeat the group of heroes that had rallied against him. He then speared Iron Man after giving him a good throwdown and was within seconds from ending him forever when Strange did something unexpected.
Spare his life.
Despite promising to put the stone above the lives of Tony and Peter, Strange willingly gives up the Time Stone to Thanos in exchange for Tony's life. When asked why, Strange says that it was the only way. This had led many fans to believe that Strange's one winning plan is still effective and it is simply a long game plan. But a new theory has emerged from Reddit that says that Strange may have a different reason for parting with his treasured stone. This theory comes courtesy of Redditor Thomas C. Galvin, who brought up the idea that when Strange peeked into the possible futures, he learned a crucial piece of information about the Infinity Gauntlet itself. Specifically, that when it houses all 6 of the Infinity Stones, its full potential is actually only limited to one shot before becoming utterly useless. After Thanos returns from the Soul Realm after his famous snap, the gauntlet can be seen in ruins, a smoking, broken heap of junk. It can still operate in some capacity as Thanos is able to use the Space Stone to leave Earth, but using the gauntlet to its maximum potential yet again is a one-and-done deal. So, when Strange saw the future, he actually knew that Thanos would inevitably use the stones to wipe out half the universe, but also learned that Thanos and the Gauntlet would be much weaker after his mission was a success. And what's worse for Thanos is that he removed Atri's hands, the dwarf who forged the Gauntlet. So, there's no way for it to be repaired or replaced. So with that in mind, Strange set his plan in motion knowing that Thanos would be in a vulnerable place after he had won. Now, one may argue that the Time Stone itself could be the device that actually fixes the Gauntlet. We've seen Thanos use it to rewind time to reclaim the Mind Stone, but it may not be as easy as all that, as Doctor Strange told us in his 2016 solo movie that messing with time could create a loop.
Dormammu, I come to bargain.
And there is a chance that since the Time Stone was housed in the Gauntlet when it was damaged, Thanos himself could get stuck in a loop. So let's scrap this idea altogether. So what's the actual Endgame? The very specific word has appeared twice now in the MCU, once by Tony in Age of Ultron and once by Doctor Strange himself.
We're in the Endgame now.
Fans have widely speculated that turning to dust is all part of the plan, and that the Avengers are just starting to enter the final phases of the master plan now. Using chess as an example, an endgame strategy is when a player decides to allow a pawn to move up the board to get promoted to a more powerful piece. Once this happens, a chess player can often shift the game in their favor. It's not unreasonable to imagine that Ant-Man is Strange's pawn. In a literal fashion, Ant-Man is a small figure who can become quite large and powerful. As we know thanks to the Endgame teaser trailer, Scott Lang did survive the decimation, and it's been widely rumored that Scott will play an instrumental role in reversing Thanos' snap by helping the Avengers navigate the quantum realm. After all, venturing into the quantum realm isn't like walking into a park. So who best to help equip the Avengers for their perilous adventure through the realm? Well, that would be one Tony Stark, genius, billionaire, playboy philanthropist. Emphasis on the genius part though. Scott may be a master of navigating through the quantum realm, but he's no Hank Pym, the genius who worked on the actual suit. Pym was seen as something of a rival to the Starks and is also a naturally gifted individual. Unfortunately, however, Hank was one of the unlucky victims of the decimation, and his expertise on the quantum realm died with him. So why the allure of the quantum realm? Well, fans have been theorizing ever since Infinity War came out that time travel will play some sort of role in the movie, but they can't exactly use the Time Stone as they're no longer in possession of it. Thanks to Ant-Man and the Wasp, though, the notion of using the quantum realm became very intriguing. Most importantly, Hank Pym left behind a mobile lab that would allow transportation into the quantum realm. The original Wasp herself also brought up an interesting nugget of information when she told Scott that there are time vortices within the realm and that he must be careful when navigating through it. So messing with time is all but confirmed as a possibility within the realm, and Scott has the means to venture in there from the mobile lab. This means that when Stark was being impaled by Thanos' improvised spear, Strange had to make a call. He knew that Thanos was going to win this round and wipe out half the universe. That much was inevitable. So he simply accelerated Thanos' timeline by willingly giving up the Time Stone as long as Tony was spared. Thanks to the nanotech in Tony's suit, he was able to seal up his wound, although he might want to see an actual doctor before that gets infected. So while Doctor Strange was willing to give up the Time Stone to save Tony, something he swore he wouldn't let happen, he did so with the intent of not really helping Tony, but to allow Tony to help Scott. Ant-Man is something of an anomaly in the MCU, being both the smallest character in terms of stature and box office haul. Both Ant-Man and its sequel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, were some of the lower profiting MCU titles, raking in $180 million and $216 million domestically apiece. For contrast, Thor Ragnarok made $315 million and Civil War made $408. But while Ant-Man may have had a smaller impact on the box office, no pun intended, he may be the character that has one of the biggest impacts on the story going forward. There may very well be no Phase 4 without Ant-Man, as he's critical to helping the Avengers undo all that has been done. In fact, some people on the internet believe that Doctor Strange manipulated events to ensure that Scott would end up in the quantum realm during the climactic showdown with Thanos in Wakanda, ensuring his safety and inevitable return. To what extent will Scott's contribution be? Well, that depends on who you ask. Will he simply be a conduit to get the Avengers from point A to B in the timeline? Possibly, but Redditor BirdGuy3 has a different idea altogether. Namely, that Scott Lang is basically pulling a Marty McFly and going back to the future.
Great Scott.
Ant-Man and the Wasp established, thanks to some exposition from Janet, that there are vortexes in the quantum realm that funnel through time. But it's unlikely that these points are direct. So if you wanted to, say, go back to New York City circa 2012, it may take a few tries as these vortexes are likely random. That could be why Janet couldn't get back to her family. Another idea is that if she were to go through time, the butterfly effect could have taken place, so she stayed in place to prevent any changes. With that in mind, Lang could return to the quantum realm after being trapped in there and go back to the 90s. This is where he'll actually meet Hank Pym for the first time and establish a connection with the only other person who fully understands the quantum realm. This is why Hank chose Scott as the new Ant-Man, because Scott told him to in the past. After all, Hank does confirm to Scott that he's been watching him for some time in the 2015 film. Perhaps Hank actually meant that he was watching him through the decades rather than the past couple of weeks. From there, Scott can acquire further knowledge from Hank about the quantum realm, such as how to bring the Avengers into it and slip them all through time to undo the decimation. If it's true that Scott can navigate time, this means that he could have set up a whole bunch of events in the past that got us to this point in time in the MCU. Nick Fury may have pulled the Avengers together, but who knows? Maybe Scott was the one steering history towards that result. One thing is for certain though, Doctor Strange willingly gave up the Time Stone for a reason. They are in the Endgame now, and everything that's left to come likely isn't going to be left to chance. The Avengers are walking on a thin rope of destiny, so to speak, that will lead them to the one victorious outcome. In order to do that, certain individuals had to be left alive, despite the initial cost. In order to have access to technology that would be worthy to navigate the quantum realm, Strange needed to save Tony Stark, despite it costing him the Time Stone. From there, Ant-Man would return from the quantum realm and seek out the Avengers at their headquarters in upstate New York. Without the Time Stone, the time vortexes in the quantum realm may be the only way to undo the decimation. But the quantum realm's time-traveling capabilities aren't as easy as the Time Stones, so Scott, who was hidden away during the snap, will have to pass through time on more than one occasion in order to get the Avengers at the right spot. Who knows, perhaps this will allow us to revisit classic scenes and characters from the MCU. So don't be surprised if we see a past version of Loki in Endgame, a character who may feel vexed knowing that Thanos ultimately kills him. Perhaps then, Loki will shift his allegiance earlier and open up a whole new timeline. Of course, if time traveling is happening and the Avengers will be tossed into familiar situations, this may open the door for many older villains to return as well. It's unclear if Thanos is the actual villain in Endgame, as he's already completed his goal. Perhaps he'll feel remorse and want to help the Avengers undo what he's done, or he'll fight against them to ensure it doesn't get undone. Regardless, time travel can allow characters like Hela to return, or even allow a greater evil such as death to enter the narrative. We won't have to wait long to find out the answers though, as Avengers Endgame is due this April. What do you think of this theory? Is it too outrageous, or do you think Ant-Man was the chosen one in Doctor Strange's one victorious timeline? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in your playlist every day. Thanks for watching.